Baseball. The Ontario government, a minister in that government, is confirming that they have received the final clearance and that everything is, let me just read the headline really quickly. They're all clear to play at home. Can you give us an update on that? What's the federal government's position? What's your, are they just going to be able to play here and travel, and are teams going to be able to come here and play?
If we've got the time to give you a long answer, I would say that the short answer is that the federal government, obviously, we're still looking very closely at the proposal put forward by both, I say, Blue Jays and Major League Baseball. And certainly we've had good discussions, conversations involving both local officials from the City of Toronto as well as provincial officials, the Blue Jays and Major League Baseball. I think I'll just give you a couple of thoughts. Going back, stepping back, I would say again, hey, Canada, we've done a good job overall relative in terms of flattening the curve. Look at where we are right now, about 300 or so cases per day. But that success that we've achieved, I think, is fragile. As we've seen, it just takes a few sparks, and we can easily backslide to having many more cases. So that's something we need to keep in mind. As part of that, risk management, if I can call it that, for COVID-19 in Canada, we've done a good job in terms of, keeping our house in order here. And so the other thing we need to look at is that how do we manage the risk of importation of COVID-19 from elsewhere? And so certainly from a federal government perspective, one of the key things we're responsible for is the international border and the Quarantine Act. And what I would say also is that, at the present time, what we know about the disease, the 14-day incubation period, that's why we have this very, I think strict, but, reasonable sort of obligatory 14-day quarantine for anyone who comes from outside who comes into Canada, so that we can keep track and make sure that they don't import the risk of having COVID-19. After the 14-day quarantine, with the sort of the understanding that they're clear of the virus, then of course we expect them to follow all the public health measures to not be at further risk of exposure. So that's the thinking from, I think, a federal government perspective in the Quarantine Act. So here we are looking at the epidemiology of COVID-19 in Canada, and we all know what the epidemiology is of COVID-19 in the United States. Looking at the plans of Major League Baseball, I would also maybe in some ways say that, hey, looking at all professional sports, all of the plans submitted, there's none that's risk-free. In essence, life is not risk-free. So it's all, again, a matter of risk management. For the NHL model, I think it's closer to what we would be comfortable with in the federal government because, as you can see, they've chosen the two hub cities in Canada. All the players and all the essential personnel involved with the production of the games have crossed the border into Canada, have observed that 14-day quarantine in terms of their training, and then we would maintain that tight bubble in terms of regular testing, making sure that there's no risk of exposure, keeping them, obviously, the players and essential staff separated from the general public. In the case of Major League Baseball, what the construct is that, the teams, and the Blue Jays included, would be, during the regular season, traveling back and forth across the international border. And that, I think, is an issue. And I think to their credit, the initial plan from the Blue Jays submitted to us had them during the regular season, as opposed to the training camp where we had permitted them to come in because it was a tight bubble, a 14-day sort of modified work quarantine, staying, strictly to the hotel and sort of the Rogers Center in terms of training. During the regular season, the proposal initially was, they can just live in their condo or summer residence and so on and be part of the community. I think it's to their credit that the Blue Jays understand how seriously we're taking COVID-19 here in Canada and the measures we've put in place and why we as a country have, I think, relatively successfully managed COVID-19 in Canada. And so the modified proposal from their perspective is that they would also maintain that quarantine bubble even through the regular season. So should they go to the U.S. For games and come back, they would still maintain that tight bubble. There'd be no family members coming to join them, etc. So kudos to the Blue Jays for, I think, making that acknowledgement and also the commitment, making that sacrifice, if you want to call it, in terms of what they're prepared to do during the regular season. But the fact remains, the Blue Jays, if they go across the border, I'm a sports fan. I know where they'll be going to play games. Florida, there's the Tampa Bay Rays, the Florida Marlins. Look at the Atlanta team in Georgia. And then, of course, with the construct of Major League Baseball at the present time, you've got the other teams coming up to Canada. And certainly, I don't think they're under the same tight sort of bubble in terms of what they're doing in their home cities as what we're doing here in Canada. So those are some of the factors that are certainly in play as we make our continue our deliberations here at the federal government level.